Hello, it's time to talk about the conclusion to the Darth Bane trilogy. Dynasty of Evil is book 3 in the Darth Bane trilogy. Let me get this mug before it just falls and shatters. Book 3 in the Darth Bane trilogy, and I think my favorite of the three. I think the B plot, or rather, I guess, C plot in this book, because Bane would be the A plot, Zana would be the B plot, because Bane and Zana are separated all the time throughout the series. And then the C plot for this one is going to be like Sarah and Lucia, and the Huntress. I think the C plot for this book was far stronger than the C plot in book 3, that of the Jedi. And I think overall, books 2 and 3 have been more enjoyable for me than book 1, though I loved book 1, simply because of the master and apprentice relationship that we just couldn't have in book 1, because in book 1 we were setting up Des's story into Bane, how that came about, and then how he reestablished the rule of 2 and began all that, which I also really loved. Really, all 3 of these books have been so enjoyable to read, but I think I'm going to talk about the plots according to that structure and then come to the conclusion. So Darth Bane's POV sections, again, I think were stronger in this one than in book 2. In book 2, he was going through the different holocrons, he was being plagued by the Orbalisk parasite that was making him so much stronger, making him indestructible, but also killing him and destroying him and tormenting him. And in this book, he's free of the Orbalisk, but he's also so damaged from it that even though Bane really isn't that old in this book, he is dying. He is quickly deteriorating, and it's obvious to Zana as well as to him that his time is running short. And that's a big part of the conflict here, is Bane's like, why hasn't she tried to kill me yet? It's such an interesting dynamic, this rule of 2, where the Sith, I've talked about this before, I think in the last Darth Bane video, the Sith way is so selfish and so self-serving. It's all about power and gaining control and the betterment of self as opposed to the betterment of society, and especially the rule of 2 even more so, because then there's no collectiveness whatsoever. This brotherhood is repulsive to Bane. To him, this idea of the collective weaker banding together to harm or kill the strongest is like a culling of the strength. The strength should be culling the weak. The strongest should be dominating the weak, and the weak should be subservient to them, because that's simply the order of things. The Sith will only be strong if the strongest defeats the weaker. And so it should be that there is a master and apprentice, and only when the apprentice is strong enough to kill the master, then the apprentice becomes the master, because that shows that still the strongest is the one that's leading. And so to Darth Bane, who has killed all these people and set up his own, well, not really his own system, reestablished the system that he believes in, and who has trained up his apprentice, his destiny is to die. And he is happy with that. But at the same time, because Zana isn't killing him fast enough, because she isn't seeking him out, because she's seeing him deteriorate and allowing it to continue, now he assumes that all she wants is to slowly watch him die, wait till he's so weak that he's not actually putting up a fight, and therefore, I need to let my cat in, hold on. Zana is living devoted to Bane's dream. She's living devoted to this rule of 2, and she believes in it as much as he does. She admires him. I don't care how many times she says that she doesn't view him as a father figure, or doesn't admire him or look up to him or any of that. I feel like her actions belie her words. She does admire this man. She views him as some kind of family, some kind of beacon that she looks to as like the correct way that she's modeled her life after, and yet she's destined to betray him. And she takes that very seriously, and she will. Despite that there's some hesitancy there, despite that, you know, she does take into account you're weakened. She says that she wants to have an apprentice first, but does she actually need to have an apprentice first? Can she not seek one out after she kills Bane? So I do think that there is some conflicting stuff there. Anyway, it's a system that is built on this, like, I don't know, it's like this abusive relationship, you know, like you pick someone as your apprentice, and then you near kill them to see if they're strong enough to be worthy of the role. I mean, Zana did the same thing with Set. When she broke his mind only so much, and then she's like, if he recovers, great, I'll train him. If he doesn't, shucks, he wasn't good enough. And that's essentially the same stuff that Bane was doing, just not mentally, because he doesn't have the same sorcery that Zana has. But it's this abusive, like, I'll take you and I'll teach you the way of the Sith, but I'll harm you, but then I'll also give you all this stuff. So all this knowledge and this ability. So then you're indebted to me, and you look up to me, and you admire me, but you're destined to kill me. It's just a fascinating system. It's a fascinating system wrought with betrayal, right? Like, Zana is meant to kill Bane. And when Bane doesn't think Xana's doing it well enough or fast enough or in the correct way, he now betrays her. But also when Zana takes on an apprentice, her apprentice is going to betray her and leave her behind because he's got the holocron that he can go search for. And so the whole system is just wrought with betrayal. Naturally, it will be, simply because of what the Sith are. Oh, it's just fascinating. It's such an interesting system to me. So Xana's story this time was more of a sidetrack. Go investigate that Jedi that died because I need you out of the way. And so she does, and that's where she finds Set, which also ends up being a sidetrack as well, I suppose, because she really, I guess she's desperate too. She really believes that she needs to have an apprentice of her own before she can face against Bane, not for the help, but just for the sake of the rule of two. And she wants this so badly that she ends up taking on someone that she really shouldn't have. Set's such a punk, like he doesn't actually believe in the way of the Sith. He's just there to get more power. She's like, he'll believe in it eventually, don't worry. He doesn't actually respect her or admire her. He any chance he gets to disobey an order that she gives him, he will. He proves himself competent. He finds the holocron and he leads her to Bane. So he is a help to her, but he's a punk. And I do enjoy his presence just for that reason. But for Zana, it's just her belief in the way of the Sith, her belief in what her destiny is to face off against Bane, and her efforts to get there, and eventually really, because when Bane does force his way into the holocron, learn what he needs to learn, he gets captured and tortured and all of that. And so Zana has to figure out what Bane's plan is, and then she has to pursue him, and she has to try to free him. And so her plot line is largely seeking to do what the series has always been building her up to do. And I think through her perspective, we get a lot more insight on the inner mentality and ideology of the Sith as well. So I really enjoyed that as well, seeing an apprentice seeking to be master, even though it's a master that she is attached to, and that sort of conflict, but at the same time she's determined to do it. It was pretty interesting as well. The C plot still is, in my opinion, the weakest part of this book, though I did like it so much more than book 2, because we got Sarah back, the little kid, the daughter of the healer, who is the reason Bane is still here, the one that Bane threatened so that he could be healed, and then she was sent off. She married a prince, and now here she is back seeking revenge. And Sarah is a character that is largely good. She's not a Zana, she's not a Bane, she's not a huntress. What was, I don't actually remember the huntress's real name, the one that can see the past and see the future in part, the one that ends up becoming the new apprentice. She's not like her, like Sarah is decent, but she's just caught up in this revenge. She's lost so much because of the Sith Order, and she wants to avenge her father's death. She's grieving her husband. She's grieving her dad. She's been through so much here, and we also have Lucia, who, oh my goodness, she was one of Bane's soldiers back in book 1, back when Bane was Des, back when he was like the leader soldier that was risking his life for his crew, for his people, back when before he had gone full tilt evil and he was still being self-sacrificial and not completely self-serving, before he abandoned them all so that he could get more power. And so Lucia, who is devoted to Sarah, and then she finds Des, and then she has to decide essentially between these two loyalties that she has. And this whole series, I think, is a tragedy, because you have Bane, who had this horrible beginning, and we see him kind of slowly go from this child that's been abused and that is living in a time of war and disillusioned by so much, and is, one step at a time choosing ways to get himself more power, to go down the Sith path, and then remake the Sith path eventually. We have Zana, who was a young child who lost everything and then was seeking some sort of power and answer to never have to be so out of control again. And what she finds is, someone who teaches her the ways of being evil. And she believes it. She commits herself to it so wholly that it just takes her over, even though she has opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to deviate from this path, but she won't. So in both cases of Bane and Zana, it is a series of choices, and in each case it's a tragic series of choices that we watch them take. For Bane, it felt more like it fit his character perfectly, and for Zana, I was more like, oh no, child, please find another way. But anyway, for the case of Sarah and Lucia, bringing the Huntress, the true next apprentice, into the story, I thought it all worked out really, really nicely. And then for the Huntress, she really was, like, she fits really well within the Sith order, within the Bane, Zana, and now her. She just is like seeking evil. And so she fits first with Bane, and then in true Sith nature, saying, if you kill Bane, I'll be yours. I'll be your apprentice. I'm here to learn the way of the Sith. I don't care who I learned from. So I think, okay, so I've gone through the 3 plots, the A plot, B plot, C plot, and I enjoyed all 3 very much in this book. I think my main complaint, because what book is perfect, so you have your nitpicks. I think my main complaint for this book 1, was that it was too fast. I really think we needed more pages. We could have built some more things out. It seemed like we just flew through certain plot points. Book 2, it was that I didn't think that the Jedi plot was as strong as it could have been. The Jedi POV, I mean. And then book 3, it's that I thought that the ending was too rushed. We could have used more pages. Bane kind of forcing his way into the holocron, Indedu's holocron, felt a little bit anticlimactic for all the buildup that we had for it. I thought that we would spend more time on that. And then same for Bane and Zana's confrontation. I really love that we had 2 confrontations. I love that Zana at first kind of got tricked into facing Bane through might, because he didn't have a weapon and he acted like he did, and he kind of goaded her into pulling her weapon, which was very clever and proved that he is very, even though Zana has a skill and ability that he doesn't have, that of the sorcery, the Sith sorcery, he's still able to outsmart her in that way, because she could have taken him down in the first confrontation if she had just used her strengths, but instead she used Bane's strength. She was goaded into using Bane's strengths. Because of that, she failed. But, you know, then she came back around, and the second confrontation, she fought him the way that made the most sense for her. I loved that sequence. I thought that was great to have the two confrontations. Both were quite quick, though, and both seem to conclude as sort of like a cutaway, you know, like the first one, if I'm remembering correct, I think the first one was that they were both injured and then it was kind of a fade to black. And then the second one was the confrontation and then switch to the Huntress's POV, which I really like switching POVs. Like, for instance, when Zana decides to attack Bane with her sorcery, and then we switch to Bane's POV and then we see the attack from him. That was great. And seeing what exactly he experienced and how exactly he overcame that, how he overpowered that. But switching to the Huntress at the end of the second confrontation didn't make sense to me. I felt that undercut what we were doing. And just in general, the fight sequences in these books have been quite prolonged. Like, they've been elaborate. And in book 3, it didn't seem like they were. Editing Murphy here. My camera cut out, and I knew it cut out here, but I didn't realize that it also corrupted a couple minutes of me talking. So anyway, I was just saying that the battles in the previous books were much longer than it seemed like this final battle was. And I expected this final battle to be longer, not shorter. So that was a little bit disappointing. But even with that being true, I still thought the battles were really good. Like, I really enjoyed them. I'm not trying to say that they weren't good. I'm just trying to say, man, I wish I had more. I just really think that this ending could have used more pages. And I don't want to necessarily take away from the C plot to give it more pages. I just want the book to be thicker. I also went on from here to talk about the conclusion with Bane attempting to do the transfer and seemingly failing, and then he dies. And then Xana's arm, her hand, kind of flexes like Bane's does. And I was trying to figure out if that meant that Bane had actually taken over Xana's body, and like he succeeded, and he's continuing the rule of 2, but he's just doing it in the way that he has to instead of the way that he would have wanted to, which was like, that was such a cool ending. It's not actually Zana that continues on the rule of 2 and trains the Huntress, but it's Bane himself training the Huntress. Like, that's such a cool open-ended ending. But I will readdress that in a minute. I also addressed Set, Xana's apprentice, well, almost apprentice, and his conclusion. Basically just asked, who is he? Because if he successfully found the holocron, and that's the epilogue of the book, then I assume that means that he successfully learned how to use it, which means that he lives an especially long time, which means that he must be somewhere in this universe. So who is he? Again, I will address that in a moment. Hi, it's been like 10 minutes. I did some reading. First of all, I spoke with my patrons about the Set thing, and apparently nothing was done with that. We don't know who he is or how long he lived on or what he did in the universe from here. It was just a thing that was added at the end of this book, and then nothing was done with it, which I find terribly unsatisfying. And then as far as Bane taking over Xana's body afterward, apparently I just read that the author addressed this because a lot of people came to the same conclusion as me, and the author said, no, stop thinking that. It was just a thing I did. Which again, I think is an odd choice to add at the end of the book if there was nothing to conclude from it other than just, you know, like, she developed a habit of her master after she killed him. So a little bit of my excitement of the implications of the conclusion of the story are a little bit dampered now, because the implications were kind of like they lead to nothing. And I don't... Why? I still loved the book. It was still an excellent book, but I just wanted to come back and address the things that I said, although I'm sure you would have addressed them in the comments too, so maybe I've stolen that from you. You still can. Okay, bye.